my series Journey to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. All right, that might be a little bit exaggerated, but I am rewatching all of the Jurassic Park movies leading up to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Things have gotten a little bit interesting because the movie opened at various places throughout the world several days ago. So a bunch of you guys have already seen Fallen Kingdom. I'm not going to be able to see it for 2 more weeks until it kind of releases here in the United States. So once that happens, I will put out my updated ranking of the movies, but I won't be able to see it for another 10 days or so. Just some background on all of that information. Also, you might be wondering why I don't have any posters behind me. That's because we're finishing up painting in here. And so we did a little bit of touching up on this paint. Since I changed out those posters, I nicked the paint a little bit. So there's actually wet paint behind me right now. And my pregnant wife is right over there doing some little painting on the trim so we can finish up this office space. With that said, let's start diving into it onto Jurassic Park 3. Go ahead and tell me your thoughts on it down below in the comment section. This is a little bit the kind of forgotten one in the franchise, the one that people don't talk about as much and don't like as much as some of the other ones. So let me know, do you hate it? Do you think it's underrated? Do you think it really is a pile of garbage? Tell me your thoughts down below. So to kick off our discussion of Jurassic Park 3, I wanted to go into the production of the movie. This is a movie that always felt a little bit off to me, like there had to be some sort of story behind what happened, and as it turns out, there was. I actually watched a video on it on YouTube where they kind of mapped out the production issues they had, and essentially they struggled to find the right plot line for the movie. Even the basic concept, they struggled to find that. So Jurassic Park 1 and 2 were based off books by Michael Crichton. The first movie in particular follows pretty closely with the book. The second one takes a lot of variations, but at the core, there was this idea of a second island with Ian Malcolm going there. Some of the characters and several of the scenes come directly from that book. But Michael Crichton didn't write a third book. So they kind of had a blank slate. And originally, Michael Crichton, Steven Spielberg were working on some ideas for it, and then they couldn't come up with anything. So some different writers came in, they wrote a script, and they kept swapping through all these ones. So like I said, check out this video up here. It gives you the specifics of what these plot lines looked like. But basically, about a month before they were supposed to start shooting, they threw out a script that they had because they didn't like it, and they'd already built sets, they had pre-rendered designs, everything was set up in place, and they had to come up with a new story with just a month, and a new script with just a month. So they were rewriting and writing the script as they were filming the movie, which explains why the movie is only 92 minutes long, and also why it's such a streamlined storyline. It's very clear-cut, easy to follow exactly what's going on, and that makes sense in light of the trouble it had. It also explains some of my issues that I had with this movie. With all that said, let's kind of dive into this one, talking about the good. And probably my favorite thing about this movie is just the return of Sam Neill as Alan Grant. This is a great, fun character because he's not really an adventurer. He's not an action hero. He's just a good guy that knows about dinosaurs, and he's going to do the right thing. And so he's got a nice little way that he interacts with people. He does not want to be the adventurer. He doesn't even want to go to this island, and finds himself kind of getting tricked into it. And so it's just fun to see this character getting to see dinosaurs, getting to learn about dinosaurs and be in their environment, and his take on all of this. That's my favorite thing about this movie. What also works well about the film is that, unlike the previous movie, this one has a very streamlined, clear story. There's a child stranded on an island. They go on a rescue mission. Things go bad, and they need to get off the island. That's what happens in the movie. There's some little sidelines in there, a couple complications, but that's it. That's what the movie is, and that works well for this movie. Just on a basic concept level, most of the ideas that kind of happen in this movie on a broad level, I think are pretty good ideas. If you tell me, is it a good idea to do a Jurassic Park movie with the idea that the island's out there and people kind of know about it, so they try to do these little tours and someone gets stranded on there and they have to do a rescue mission? That's not a bad setup for a Jurassic Park movie. And even some of the ideas in there where they talk about, they go on the rescue mission and they trick Alan Grant to go there, and this discussion kind of comes out to where these fumbling parents trying to pull things together needed someone that had been to the island before so that they get Alan Grant. And then Alan goes, I've never been to this island before. I've been to Isla Nublar. the main island. This is the secondary island. This is Isla Sorna. So like I haven't been here before. That's clever. That's a smart little detail that's a mistake that these desperate parents would make as they don't really have the resources. And so on a lot of those ideas I thought worked really nicely on a big picture sort of way. And it's a very efficient movie. Where if you look at the first Jurassic Park, where they had a lot of big ideas, big storytelling, and so you're discovering this world of dinosaurs and the different ideas about it before things kind of go crazy, and that works really well for that movie. But this movie's a rescue mission. Someone gets stranded, we gotta go get them. And in that, it's a much quicker movie. It moves a lot faster. We get to the action very quickly. I mean, it's just right out the gate, the kid gets stranded, we set up Alan Grant, and then we're going to the island. And the movie's done less than 100 minutes later. With credits, only 92 minutes long. So it's very quick moving, very efficient, doesn't linger on anything too long. There's not really a movie you can get bored with because whatever you might get bored with, you move past really quickly. With that said, let's move, unfortunately, on to the bad. Unfortunately, I really don't think that this is a good movie, which is very strange to me. Because everything I just described, I think it has a pretty good idea for a movie and nice streamlined storytelling. Joe Johnston is a guy that's directed a bunch of movies that I've really enjoyed. Even before this, The Rocketeer, Jumanji, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He had a track record would say that he'd be a great fit to do a Jurassic Park movie. And I guess in the behind the scenes type stuff, he told Steven Spielberg, I would love to do a Jurassic Park movie. And he said, so obviously Spielberg did the second one. So he ends up doing the third one. And you can see where there'd be this history where he would seem like a great fit. So that looks good. Cast is also very good. Sam Neill returns, Téa Leoni, William H. Macy. This is a solid, nice cast to do a movie like this. And then for whatever reason, the way everything plays out doesn't feel quite right. Everything about this movie feels off, from the special effects to the look to the execution of it to the shots used. It doesn't work. It almost to me feels like it has the reverse problems of The Lost World. So as I talked about in my review last week, my big problem with The Lost World is that it's a movie that seemed like it had a bunch of ideas that didn't quite fit together quite right. Because, it's about Jeff Goldblum going on a rescue mission, but it's not a rescue movie. And it's about Julianne Moore going there on a research mission, but it's not really a research mission. And then it's about them trying to get off the island, but they get off the island and there's still 30 minutes left in the movie. And then we go to San Diego and it's about, it's King Kong in San Diego with a T-Rex. And so it's a very unfocused movie. But if you look at individual sequences, they all still have that Spielberg magic, just directed wonderfully, tense. His Spielberg is still Spielberg. The idea for a plot and script just wasn't there. This movie, it feels like the concept of the movie is the strong point. The execution, not good at all. And what I mean by that, there's a bunch of issues with this movie. Right off the bat, we've got goofy ideas. So when I say goofy ideas, there's a scene in this where Alan Grant is on a plane, he falls asleep, and the way he wakes up is he's dreaming, and it shows a velociraptor turn its head towards him and say, Alan, wake up! Or something like that. Like, Alan. A dinosaur talking, and it's a dream, but it feels so out of place in this franchise. It's just not the sort of sequence that fits. And so it just pulls you out of the movie like, what? Just a very goofy thing to have happen. And then a major plot line in this is that the guy in their group that had their satellite phone gets eaten. And so then as this dinosaur's running around at parts of the movie, you hear his phone off in the background, and they discovered that it's because the dinosaur ate the guy, so the phone's in the dinosaur. So a plot point in this is that there's a dinosaur running around with a phone beeping inside of him, and that's how they know the dinosaur is around. That's a pretty goofy idea. Like, I do not like that idea. And you can see where they're trying to figure out a way to do something, and they don't have a lot of time to write the script, so they just come up with this idea that's like, oh, that's kind of clever. It's kind of clever, but it feels very odd. And then another one is the movie ends, and you're like, they get to the final moment in the movie where you're like, are they about to get eaten by a dinosaur? There's some guy making noise, and then a bunch of military show up, and they do like a patriotic military version of the Jurassic Park theme that's like upbeat. And I mean, just the goofy idea. You could see where someone would think that was a good idea in some context, like, oh yeah, wouldn't that be fun? But it feels so out of place with the context of the franchise. So that you got these goofy ideas, then you got these over-the-top ideas. And what I mean by that is, obviously there have been a bunch of big, grand action sequences in the previous 2 Jurassic Park movies, but they felt grounded. Like you might say the sequence where the car is in the tree and Alan's climbing down as the tree's falling towards him, you'd say, why didn't they just move off to the side? But the sequence itself wasn't the problem. It was like the logic of the characters to try and build tension and inside of it. This one just has over-the-top silly sequences. Like the sequence itself feels like, okay, this will be level 8 in the video game. So the big one that comes to mind is when they get to the pterodon cage thing, and they got the boys running, and he's jumping on these little circles from platform to platform as birds are flying left and right at him, and it just looks like it's straight out of a video game. Like it's just, that's how video games at the time were. There were these side scrollers, and you jump from platform to platform as birds would attack you, and that's like a level inside of the Sega Genesis game. And so like it didn't feel like a movie sequence, it didn't feel like an action sequence, it felt like set up for a video game. And then that's followed up by inside of this thing, a guy puts a parachute on and jumps down and grabs the kid, and just all of it feels disconnected from reality, just over the top in the type of sequence it is that doesn't feel like it fits inside of the Jurassic Park franchise, especially in light of what has come before in previous movies. You also have kind of gross ideas in these movies, or in this movie, where you had certain types of gross out stuff in the previous movies. This one, it's like they wanted to up that. And so the first Jurassic Park movie had the poo scene where they'd set it up nicely. There's a sick dinosaur, so let's go look at the droppings and see what it's eating. Okay, that makes sense. Well, this one, it takes this idea, okay, a dinosaur ate a guy, so then what happens? It poos out the guy and the phone. And so then the phone's in the poo, and then they run up, and they don't have the gloves because, obviously they're stranded on the island. And so then they're running up to steaming piles of poo and sticking their arms in and then putting the phone up to their face like this to talk. Gross. And it's not so, like, the poo scene in the first movie, I dug it. Like they earned it, and it didn't seem like it went too far. This one didn't feel earned. It felt ridiculous and silly because it was tied to the previous idea of a guy got eaten and there was a phone beeping in a dinosaur's belly. And then it was taking this extra level of steaming piles of poo with people sticking their arms in it that just didn't seem like it needed to... It didn't seem like they needed to go to that level with that idea. And then the end of the movie is really clunky. As you're watching through it, and we have this big scene with the pterodons, and they run through the cage, and then Billy gets eaten, so they're running away once again, and they get the phone, and then they're on a boat, and it's like we have another big end sequence where the pterodons seem like that probably should have been one, and then we have another one in a boat, or where our spine guy is popping up, and just big monster one more time as they're trying to make the phone call, and it's like it's just this big sequence that didn't seem like it. Why are we back on the boat? Why is things happening? Like the logic to, they got the phone out of the poo and then they waited to get in the boat and then they're making the phone call. Like why exactly did they wait? But it's like they had to set up the details so that they could have the rescue at the end. And even the nature of the sequence where they're like trying to add little tensions into the sequence as the little kid on the other end of the phone is doing other things, but then the phone on the island, or on the island who's on the boat, is sliding all around. And just all of it just felt like it was last minute written. Like we got one draft on this, so what can we try and do to add tension in there? So this is resolved. And this should be our big finale for the movie and they get past this, but the way it's set up is they make a phone call to someone that might come and rescue them, so then you have to have like 12 more hours pass. So then the next day happens and they're walking through the trees and you need to end your movie with a bang, you gotta have some tension in there, so then velociraptors show up. Like what? Velociraptors are now showing up. And going back to our silly over-the-top goofy ideas, velociraptors are about to eat them and they're like, just give them the eggs and they'll be okay. And then they're handing them the eggs, and then Grant pulls out his reconstructed velociraptor skull whistle, and starts communicating with velociraptors with this thing that was done with a 3D printer based off of 70 million year old fossils. What? Like, this doesn't, we're stretching plausibility on all of this, and it's so clunky in the way it plays out. So velociraptors run off, they go to the beach, and then the movie's over. It's just, dun, 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 our military version of it. It very odd. Like, it didn't feel like, as you're watching the original one, it's all building towards people getting out of there. And so, can we get the power back on so we can make a phone call? And can these people get back so we can get on the helicopter and get out of here? So it's all building towards one thing. It's pointed towards something. This one, it was, we want to get off the island, but we have to make a phone call, and people show up, and we have to make the phone. How and why, and the timing. It just felt like a last minute rewrite, last minute, let's put this together so we can get off the island type thing. Because if you were doing it otherwise, you'd make the phone call at the beginning of the movie. You'd have it in the middle of the movie to give the time to pass. And so they maybe get the phone call through like, hey, we're going to be on the pier on the left side of the island or something like that. And so they're trying to get to the left side of the island. And then we have all the things that happen in the middle as they're trying to get there. And are they even going to be here? Or you set a time like, we've only got 2 more hours to get there before they're going to show up, giving urgency. That's what you normally do, unless you're cobbling your movie together because you don't have a completed script as you go into it, in which case, in your climax itself, you're having the making a kind of phone call part of what happens, in which case then military guys just show up and you're like, how did they even find you? Why are they at the same spot as you? And that's this movie. That's what happens when you don't have a script. A few other kind of final little things on this one is that the whole thing looks off to me. It looks cheaper and bad. And what I mean by that is it looks like it's lit the way TV shows are lit, or at least the way TV shows used to be lit, which is to say, when you're shooting a TV show, you have a lot less time. And so if you want good lighting for a TV show, you just show up, you turn all the lights on, you point a bunch of lights at everything, so everything is just fully lit. You can see everything nice and crystal clear because everything's fully lit. You don't have to worry about that person stepping into shadows. Everything is lit, because you don't have time to get multiple angles, reset up the lights and everything like that. And that's kind of what this movie looks like to me. That they had a last minute script and they were rushed to get everything done to make things happen. So as they're shooting things, the dinosaurs look too well lit. Our people running through a forest look too well lit, which makes it feel like they're on a set, even though I'm pretty sure they're in an actual, forest. But it looks like they're on a set because of the way everything is so fully lit, and a lot of it's daytime, and so it looks off and it looks cheap because of that. And adding to that, the special effects don't look as good. Maybe some of that's because everything's so fully lit. Maybe it's because they got a little bit overzealous thinking, hey, we're great at special effects, so we can actually just put the CGI dinosaur there on screen, and it looks off. But adding to the special effects, the lighting issue is that it has it's like the reverse of Jaws. So the good thing was Jaws was they're having production issues, so you never got to see the shark. So they had to find all these ways to make the shark terrifying by how you're seeing barrels move on the water, and you see someone pulled underwater, and you see someone eaten, and there's blood shoots out, but you don't see a lot of the shark. And that makes the shark scarier when he does show up for these little glimpses, like he just popped up out of nowhere. And they even mostly did that in like the original Jurassic Park, where the T-Rex is hiding and then his eye shows up and his foot falls down and then you see a head come out and eat someone. But it doesn't linger in the daytime as we're introducing them, if we're just staring at this CGI effect. We do that with the tame dinosaurs that aren't going to eat them, but the ones that are supposed to scare us, a little bit more restricted on when we see them. We can see a good bit more of the velociraptors, but there's a certain fear of like they're looking for them in the original one. In this movie, it feels like we're staring at our Spinosaurus so much in the movie that it just takes some of the fear out of it, and just keeps popping up all the time, and we're looking at him in daylight. And so he feels off. Some of the mystery, the fear, it's gone. The tension, it just seems like they could have found a better way to make him scary other than he showed up and he's big. He showed up and he ate somebody. Like, what can you do that's clever to scare us? To have clever ideas, you got to go into it with a script that's complete so you can start to think about how do you visualize all this in a way that is interesting. Even the way this movie's shot, there's all these shots that just seem like a dull way to film each of these scenes. none of it really worked, which is, like I said, odd because it's Joe Johnston, unless you realize the movie had a very troubled production. So as you can tell, I didn't particularly care for this movie. And it's not even a one that I have like a respect for what they tried to do. It's a movie that I just don't think works particularly well. I'd have to give this movie a C on an entertainment level. I'd go like a 5.5. It's not just a train wreck of a movie, but considering the budget, considering the property, it should have been a lot better. It should have been a lot more entertaining. And I guess it's good that the movie moves quick because you don't get too bored with it while watching it, even though it's not particularly good. Anyway, that's my take on it. How about you? Maybe you're one of the people that really like this one. Can you give a defense for it? Tell me down below in the comment section, what did you think about the movie? And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, but the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. So please join me down in the comment section. Let's have a lively discussion. And as always, thank you for watching.